Miguel thinks that Grace has a time limit.
Since when? Huh?
I don't know.
He obviously ain't been married no amount of time.
Wow.
So he don't really know.
That's the understatement of the day.
He gonna learn today. And the day after that. For as long as he's married. Think I'm lying? He got a lot to learn, don't he?
Clearly. Maybe he need to pick up something else besides the Dungeons and Dragons book. He'd find
a different kind of book that break that truth down to him.
He'd find out a little bit more.
Come on, sister, preach. Anyway, welcome to Cliff Alerts. Today we're going to be talking about Lifetime Network's reality-based TV series, Married at First Sight, season number 15, episode number 8.
And today we're going to focus on Lindy and Miguel. But before we get into it, please like, share, and subscribe. Please send us your comments and click that notification button so you know when we upload new content. And we say thank you for doing that.
Miguel hooked up some breakfast.
Yeah, Miguel clearly knows his way around the kitchen. That thing looked good. It had some jalapeno peppers on it.
Showing off the culinary skills.
I'm not mad at him at all. In fact, I wanted a tasty taste.
Yeah, you want to reach through the screen and with your little fork?
Right.
Do a little taste test?
Right.
See if you know what he's working with, huh?
It's good to have a man who cooks.
Yeah.
They got their bottle of champagne from the producers of the show.
And the card
and
that
a
goes
card
along with
that
it.
asks the question, what will it take to fall in love? And what is the potential of your love?
Right.
So they had to really answer that question.
Right. But first on day 21, Miguel kind of meets with his boy, doesn't he?
He meets with his boy Steve, and Steve said he and his wife had an encounter with Lindy. They believe that Lindy may have a little Jekyll and Hyde situation going on with her, and that she was highly emotional.
As it relates to the issue of her being on
the
Miguel's insurance policy,
right?
Because she's not covered right now.
Right. That was last week when she stayed in the kitchen and she was talking to them.
She was revealing that to them.
But I think that came more from the wife rather than Steve.
Okay.
Because a man doesn't check for an emotional component.
Yeah, you said that when we were talking last week. Yeah.
So I think that came from his wife rather than him.
Yeah.
And Steve asked him if he still have his radar.
Detector on.
If it was still on.
Yeah. And he said it is, right?
He said it was, that he had a pretty rough encounter with Lindy when she went off on him regarding the insurance and or taking his name, and he addressed that with her.
Yeah, Miguel seemed to be turned off by the incident overall.
We see Lindy and him talking. He talked about, her going off.
Yeah.
And she said she's not doing a lot of it because she respects him.
Right.
And she doesn't want to do that because she could see that he has an adverse reaction to it.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that if he sees that someone is crazy, and those were his words, he is just going to walk away from them. He don't have time.
He's not going to, quote unquote, stick around.
Exactly. He doesn't have time for that because he thinks that's not necessary.
Right.
And she was saying you got to know the person, all their warts and all. It takes time to get into a flow, and that he got to give her grace.
Right.
And he came back with grace, according to him, grace is finite, and therefore it has
time limits. I know one thing, I'm glad God didn't think like that.
Yeah, amen. Lord, it'll be scary.
Because we all would be in trouble if that were the case.
It'll be scary if that was how God wrote. Lord have mercy. Thank you for grace.
Well, come on, let church say amen.
However, Lindy, coming from that religious side, she knows about the grace, and I guess she has an expectation that it will be big and wide and massive, and meanwhile he is thinking about the same thing but in a different way.
Well, is it necessarily the same thing, do you think?
Well, I mean, the structure of what grace is giving someone another chance.
Yeah.
So he's clearly thinking of how many chances he's got to give her until she gets it together. And it's almost like, in the word it talks about forgiving. Somebody
Yes.
asks, how many times you gonna forgive someone?
70 times 70.
And that's a long if you if you add and multiply and add that
Yes,
up.
indeed.
So he doesn't have that foundation.
Yeah.
Doesn't know a whole lot about it. So for him, grace has limits.
But I'm wondering what he thinks would be required of him as part of a marital arrangement to be able to, incorporate in his marriage if it were going to last. When especially when problems and issues come up where maybe one side is a little upset with the other side.
Well, I think based on what I see, Miguel started off thinking about stuff in an intellectual and scientific way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the more we see him and Lindy together, I think he is understanding that, this is supposed to be an open, free flowing process. You gotta forgive because Lindy is gonna go off again.
Mm-hmm.
She's gonna talk to him sideways again.
Yeah, it's coming.
And he is gonna have to, if he wants to be married, find a way to deal with that emotional thing she got going on. And there's a dark place where that comes from.
Mm-hmm.
He gotta understand it and keep it moving.
Mm-hmm.
And being in a relationship is not that scientific. It's not a scientific experiment. This is
Real
completely different.
Right, and I think also too, as it relates to Miguel has, at least from my vantage point, something that he's doing that I don't think is necessarily a good idea. He hides his true feelings of, what he thinks and what he feels behind this intellectual, philosophical kind of facade.
Mm-hmm. What do you mean?
In other words, he'll go along, conversationally with what he thinks sounds good and may be the quote unquote right answer to give based on the topic of discussion or conversation and all that. But it may not have anything to do with where he really is on the issue.
But is that more related to his ego?
Could very possibly be that.
He is the
Sure.
scientist. So he's coming from that point of view, and I don't fault him. That's how he was trained.
No, it's part of it.
Because when you're in the legal field, you and let's say you are representing a defendant or you're representing a plaintiff, you think in a different way.
Yeah, and I understand that part of it. I get that part of it, but I also understand that there are other parts of people that have nothing to do with what you do professionally.
Right.
Okay. And for him, it just seems like, from my vantage point, that sometimes he, like I said, he puts, that ahead of, as a representative to who he is and how he really feels.
And when you're trained and you're in an environment and doing something for a long period of time, you start thinking about stuff. You tend to operate your life like that. What you do sort of takes
away
over.
From the office.
Away from the office.
Yes.
And when I met you, that used to drive you nuts, and I knew I had to change it up.
Right.
Because it wasn't serving us in any positive way.
Right.
I'm still all about the investigation stuff.
Oh, you still be super snooping.
But a lot has changed.
Right. I think there's a lot to be learned by, I guess, people who have those careers that, hey, look, it's not what you do. Who you are is not what you do.
Yeah.
It's part of what you do,
Right.
but it's not who you are.
Right. And again, when you're into that stuff and you don't have someone at the house, what you do becomes everything. And sometimes it's hard to put it aside to even be with someone, because a lot of professionals have a hard time meeting someone because the other person don't understand what they have to do to be successful at their job and how much time it takes to work that out.
Right.
So it's a struggle, but it can be done.
Yeah, it's a challenge.
And it's not overnight.
No.
Because I certainly didn't change overnight.
Right.
It was a ongoing argument and upset between us when I would roll the way I roll. But look at us now, huh?
Yeah, and interrogating the brother, asking questions you already know the answer to.
Well, that's my favorite part. She's quirky. She's a little different, but she's gonna be a good influence on him. But he gotta check her when she goes in the Nutville category of the grocery store. He has to check her.
From Miguel's vantage point, he doesn't want to see things get or become toxic in their relationship.
He don't want messy.
He really don't want messy.
He
don't do messy very well.
No, he does not.
Okay.
And that all comes back from his childhood.
Yeah, and Lindy also says that she doesn't want to feel like he's keeping score either.
Well, that's what he's gonna do.
Yeah, but that's not gonna work for her.
Yeah, but all these things take time. I mean, you meet, you are who you are. You're gonna have these quirks and stuff that you do until you recognize that, hey, I don't have to do this anymore.
What Lindy is saying is, at least from my understanding, is that every time I make a mistake, I don't want it to be, as part of a scorecard.
That I don't know, but what she has to do is feel comfortable in herself and be herself.
Well, the reason why I'm saying that is because she was the one that referenced, this thing about grace being consistently given out.
Right.
Right. To cover, the multitude of mistakes that are going to be made by both of them.
But she got to understand too, when you know that you're doing something and it's toxic to a relationship, you have to put that aside.
No question about it.
And because that's one thing I had to learn. You can't talk to people any kind of way and expect something good to come from.
Yes.
We know stuff is gonna happen every now and then.
Yeah.
But you have to acknowledge what you do and try to change that up.
Yeah.
They can get through it.
They got some work to do though, because they're on the opposite sides of that issue right now.
But
in terms of the grace
any
issue.
one of them have a timetable or something has a clock to it, there's gonna be problems.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And Miguel says something kind of peculiar at the end of it. He says if there weren't fumes involved, he would have been out.
Yeah, I believe that about him.
Yeah, but why would he choose to say that now?
Because that's what he does. He wants to keep her on her toes. He wants her to know that at any given point in time, if she pisses him off, he is going to leave, because that's what he usually does based on his childhood. His mother left him.
Mm-hmm. And leading up to that decision, he wants to hold that as like an ace in his pocket.
Right. You see, we all do stuff based on our child. We have these little stuff that we do, and it's just a manifestation of hurt.
Yeah.
And once you understand that, you could, burn it and shut it down. So they meet up with the couples, and of
Dr.
course,
Pia.
and of course, Miguel has on his shirt, and everybody was laughing. All the ladies thought it was so.
And Lindy had no problem.
She had no problem.
No problem.
Miguel was
Miguel didn't
fun. He enjoyed himself.
He got a kick out of it.
He appreciated a good show.
Yeah.
And
unlike somebody else we already read.
Dr. Pia asked them what was their situation.
They each got a chance to share what was going on within the context of their marriage, right?
Mm-hmm.
So far. And when the question came around to Lindy and Miguel, Lindy spoke up and said, well, she kind of feels like she's holding back a little bit from, from who she really is, because in her mind, she respects Miguel too much to show him who she really is, I guess.
Yeah.
And I'm like, huh? I was scratching the old egg on that.
I don't think Lindy is holding back. What I think Lindy is trying to say is, Lindy wants to act up whenever she feels like,
Mm-hmm.
and she knows she can't do that.
Okay.
So she deemed that as holding back.
Okay. Well, she's got to be authentic, and she's also got to understand that, in terms of them being, a better married couple than they were the day before, and having that continue on, that she needs to be, realizing that this is going to take time, and she's got to be vulnerable, just like.
Well, she got to be vulnerable, but this is the point. Lindy got to know that acting up is not the way to go in her relationship, and she can't really expect Miguel to give her grace on something that is toxic.
Mm-hmm.
You can't encourage bad behavior.
Right. You can't act up.
No.
You cannot act up.
And she talking about she's holding back.
Mm-hmm.
Girl, continue holding back, because no one wants to see that coming out of you. Or in the best possible way, go talk to someone.
Sure.
Get something going so you can get that venom, because she comes at you for your throat. She comes to really rip you apart
Knives
when she released that beast.
Yeah.
So she got to put those weapons down.
And how you said she got to tame that bee inside of her?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm.
That thing is ferocious.
Yeah, and we got a glimpse of it, an episode or two
Right.
ago? Yeah.
And I don't think anyone has been able to really check her on that. And Miguel has to now deal with her, because she has brought that out with her friends. We know her family has seen that stuff before.
Sure.
So that's not a good thing, because they're accepting of it doesn't mean that
It's still right.
it's right.
I agree.
So because she knows it's not right, she should try to change that up.
And you said she should try to change that up.
Right.
To respond, and that means the burden or onus is on her
Right.
to do so, not him. Okay, it's on her, but he's got to support her
Right.
in that effort. But it starts with her.
That sort of sometimes he may talk down to her.
Yep.
And that's not good either.
No, not hardly.
So everybody has work to do.
Yeah.
Let's not release the beast. Check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Lord have mercy.
Please, don't
do
it.
Don't do it. It may feel good, but don't
do it.
Blessings always. Have a good one.
See y'all.
See you in the next bit.
Bye.